Hello everyone, Unrested back again with a quick video once more before I go to work, as I found this is the perfect niche and time for me to set you guys up with a quick update on JFAQs. Anyway, let's just hop into our subject for today, and what it concerns is pretty much years of emails that I've gotten that always ask about jobs. I mean, that's pretty much the prime concern as far as living here and jobs with my JFAQs. And one thing I always talk about is Eikaiwa, which literally translates to English conversation, and I talk about ALT. Now, these are probably two of the main jobs you would get here in Japan, first coming over as a foreigner looking for a teaching job in Japan. So I thought today what I would do is actually take the time to go into each of these two jobs. That's ALT, Assistant Language Teacher, who works at either an elementary school or a junior high school, and Eikaiwa, English Conversation Teacher, who would work at an Eikaiwa company such as Ian, GABA, Nova, etc., etc. Today I'm going to go ahead and go into a day in the life of each of these jobs, break down things such as times and duties, and give you pretty much the full insight I can give you within a brief synopsis. Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start with the ALT job, and this means Assistant Language Teacher. At times I've heard people call it Alternative Language Teacher. I guess it's really up for argument as to what the abbreviation truly means, but I'm going to go with Assistant Language Teacher because what you are doing is assisting an English teacher at the school teaching language. You are not really a full-time teacher. You are not, obviously certified in Japan as a teacher, and you've not actually been given the license of a teacher through the Board of Education. Now, before I even get started into the job description, let me first say there are two different ways in which you get this job. Sometimes you can actually be hired through the Board of Education in your prefecture or county or ward office. Other times you may be hired through what's called a dispatch company, and these, you may have seen them if you've looked at a place like gaijin.com. These are companies like Interact or ZIAC or Minerva, and these companies actually handle the contracts for the Board of Education and hire the teacher. Honestly, if you can, I would say try to get the job through the Board of Education. The benefits and the pay are much better. If you get hired through a dispatch company, they're going to pretty much rob you of some of your pay in order to make it worth their time to hire you. That's how they make their money. Some of you might say, well, Scott, what about the JET program? That's through the government. That's usually hired through the embassy in your country. It's a lot harder to get into those. The pay is amazing, the benefits are amazing, and the way they treat you is pretty damn good from what I've heard. Can I get you into that? Can I help you out with that? No. Look, any job you hear about here today, it's up to you to do the work. I'm not about to lay down every single step that you have to go through in order to attain a job here. That would take a lot of specific care for each viewer, and really, I mean, that's your future. Shouldn't you be concerned with it, not me? Anyway, let's get into it. Your typical day at a junior high school or elementary school, it'll be one or the other if you get hired, and sometimes a mix of both. Your typical day will almost always start at 8:30. Now, this job's probably going to require you to get up the earliest of any job you would take here in Japan. I used to have to wake up at about 6:45 a.m. to catch the train out to the countryside to where my school was. It was quite far from my house, and I won't say that was convenient. That was very inconvenient, to be honest. Anyway, you'll get started. Every day, almost every day, is going to be 8:30, and that is pretty typical of a public school in Japan. That's going to be your first bell, and usually when homeroom or the first class gets started at your school. Usually, you're going to have to be there 20 to 30 minutes before that first bell for a daily teachers meeting. Now, elementary schools, it's not so common to have an everyday meeting, but junior high schools, I'm pretty much 100% certain that every single day you will have a meeting. The meeting is usually led by Kocho Sensei, who is the principal of the school, and they will usually update you on things such as, current sicknesses that are going around the school. Was there any fights? Was a student caught smoking a cigarette outside of school? Just pretty much kind of daily gossip, really, in my opinion, but also issues that may be at hand. Also, maybe if there's going to be inclement weather or some other problem that may arise during the week. Usually these meetings are updated every single day at a junior high school, and usually once or twice a week at an elementary school. Okay, your average day at one of these schools will usually consist of anywhere from 3 to 5 classes, which will be signed in usually 45-minute increments, depending on the average school day. Some I've seen for 50 minutes, and sometimes I've seen both where the average day is about 50 minutes, but if they have a special event during the day, which often does happen at many Japanese schools, all classes will be reduced to 45 minutes to save 5 minutes from each class for that event for the day. Now, if that's going to be your school, I don't know. Junior high schools usually are 45 to 50 minutes. Elementary schools, on average, about 45 to 35 minutes for a class. Usually, you will be assigned a schedule. It will be given to you either during the week, during the month, or sometimes even daily it will change. Usually you've got a list of 6 classes through the day, and your times are written in for which periods you've been asked to come to class and teach English. When you come to class, you will always have a Japanese teacher with you. The Japanese teacher will pretty much just be there to discipline. And during a junior high school class, you are definitely the ALT, the assistant language teacher. You will be assisting an actual Japanese English teacher who is teaching the class. Now, how much or how little you will be teaching is really up to the head English teacher. Now, in an elementary school, you will almost completely have full reign as to what you're doing. There will be a book that you will follow, which, if I am correct, it is Eigo Noto, which just means English notebook. And in most junior high schools, it is the Crown, which is an Oxford English book that almost all schools use. Now, it might change from prefecture to prefecture. I can't be 100% certain, as I have not taught in every single prefecture in Japan, so don't hold me to that. Anyway, as a junior high school teacher, you will be assisting. Most times you will be there to help with pronunciation. You will be there to possibly run a few games, teach a few basic lessons. Hopefully you are actually an assistant, but I have had times where I was completely relied on to teach the entire class. I actually had one where the teacher would seriously just fall asleep during the class, and it would be up to me to do everything. I'm hoping that's not your situation, but be ready for it. Elementary school, pretty much expect that you're going to do almost everything. You will have a few guidelines. There usually will be a notebook full of games, or possibly just pieces of games set aside that, if you do not know, usually you can ask a teacher for assistance. And a great site that I always use, and I would suggest it, is Dave's ESL Cafe. Has a great list of games and lessons. I have used it on many an occasion, and if you ever find yourself stumped before a lesson, I say quickly hop on, check it out, and see if you can find a game or lesson that connects with what you're teaching for the day. As for lunchtime at schools, usually your lunchtime is going to be anywhere from 12 to 12:30 it's going to start. And at an elementary school, usually you'll be asked to eat with students. There's usually not a cafeteria at most elementary schools. Most students actually eat inside the classroom that is their home room. Usually daily you'll be assigned a different classroom, and this lets you go ahead and chat it up and get to know your students within each class. It also gives each class a little bit of time with a foreign teacher. I would say this is a great time to go ahead and practice your Japanese. It is not a strict or kibishi time in which they are saying English only please, and so this lets you communicate on possibly, a level that is the same. That's my situation. I pretty much speak on an elementary school level still, and that lets me really practice listening and speaking Japanese, so I really appreciate that time. This also lets you bond with your students, and trust me, that is indispensable. If you can connect with your students, get them to laugh, get them to really enjoy your presence, you'll find classes go so much smoother. Now, in junior high school, it's a little bit different. Usually you're going to be eating at your desk. If you are eating at your desk, try to wait until it is lunchtime and all teachers eat at the same time. Eating before everyone else in Japan is definitely a rude situation. Please just try to hold out. I know you might be starving, but it's best if you can wait to eat your whole lunch till that time. Now, snacking occasionally, not a big deal, but don't make a full meal of it. As for the actual setup of desks, since you will be sitting at one and assigned one at each school, you will find there's sort of a bullpen of desks for the teachers in the teacher room. All teachers stay in the same room. And then usually at the front of the class, or I should say the front of the teacher's room, there is Kocho Sensei and Kyoto Sensei, which means principal and vice principal. And they usually sit at the front in order to observe and assist teachers. So that is almost always going to be the same setup. Rarely have I seen anything different in schools. There's also an area in which students can come in to talk to the teachers. Usually they cannot pass a certain area of the desks, and you'll find them coming in and out throughout the day to ask questions. They may even ask for you. As for holiday time and time off, well, usually with ALT you will find you get quite a bit of time off. That means summertime and usually wintertime you get quite a long break. You'll also get any major national holiday, of course. Now, here comes the hard part. If you've been hired through a third party or dispatch company, usually this is the time that they're pretty much taking your money. The Board of Education actually does pay you during holiday, but if you've been hired through a contract, the way they're making their money is by taking that pay and keeping it while you have your time off. This can be pretty harsh sometimes. For example, summer holiday, Natsuyasumi, you might find yourself with 2 months of no work. So, as I've said before, and I must reiterate, save, save, save your money in Japan. You will find many a time that that is an emergency situation in which you will either have to find extra work or you will have to rely on that savings. Now, if you actually work for the Board of Education and you're not part-time, there is the chance that you will be paid during your time off, in which case you are a very lucky person. You should appreciate that. JET, you are always going to get paid for that time off. Wow, that's great. As for weekly holiday or weekly time off, whatever you want to call it, almost always you will have Saturday and Sunday off. I would suggest if you are invited to come to an event on one of these days to please come check it out. This will not only increase your bond with the school, but the students as well, which I have said is indispensable. Also, another thing that might happen is you might be asked to a teacher's party. Usually these come around the beginning of the year, or sometimes during the winter break or the summer break. It really depends with each school. And usually this is all the teachers going out for a nomi hodai, tabe hodai, which means all you can eat, all you can drink situation. Yes, they will drink beer. Perhaps a few of them will get red and drunk in the face, and you will really get to know them during this time. You may find it's not going to be as exciting as perhaps hanging out with your local friends, but I would still suggest that you check this out in order to increase your bond with the school and your job. Next Next up we have Eikaiwa, which I said literally translates to English conversation. As an English conversation teacher, you will find your job is actually quite different from what an ALT would work. The first difference is going to be the actual time in which you work. Most Eikaiwas start out with two schedules. Usually there's a morning schedule and a midday schedule. I actually had the unique opportunity to work a night schedule, which was a third one at the Eikaiwa I worked at, and it was a crazy shift from 11 p.m. till 7 a.m. via webcams. Now, that's not something I would recommend, as it left me absolutely tired, and you will find you have to sleep quite a bit more if you actually work a night shift. So, taking a morning or midday shift, quite nice, lets you sleep in, something you won't find you get to do with the ALT job too often. Now, what time do these start? Well, I would say your average, now this is just an average, I'm not saying this is definitely 100% certain for every Eikaiwa company out there. 9 to 10, morning shift, and usually anywhere from 12 to 3 for a midday shift. On average, you're probably going to have an 8-hour shift. Some companies only work part-time, so this usually depends on how they're going to hire you. Some companies will only hire you for the hours that you actually have a student assigned. That means you're also only going to get paid for the hours a student shows up. Some companies just hire you for an 8-hour allotment and you get paid no matter what. If the student shows up, you get paid. If the student doesn't show up, you get paid. Some companies are really harsh, and if your student fails to show up, which is no fault of your own, you just don't get paid. That's pretty rough. I would try to steer clear of a company that would have such a policy. Now, your major companies, let me go ahead and list them real quick. As of right now, we have Geos, GABA, Nova, ECC, Eon. You can go ahead and check those all out online. Now, in the past, if you've researched any of this, you may know that the actual business ethics of these companies has been, let's say, sketchy at best. Now, am I going to say it's great to work for these companies? No. And honestly, in my opinion, I would not make a career of it. I would not look into working long time for these companies because in the end, any loyalty or quality of lessons is not really taken into consideration, and they're never really looking out for the long-term life of a gaijin in Japan. My honest opinion. Now, some of you may differ with that. You may have found they treat you quite nice. I have never heard anything bad about ECC. So, of all the companies I just listed, as far as I know, ECC has the best track record. Other ones like Nova or Geos, who left their teachers high and dry with no pay for quite a long time, obviously have a few ethics to work out. Now, I'm not saying these are the only Eikaiwas in Japan. There are also a lot of mom and pop run Eikaiwas, or even just what I want to say is just small company Eikaiwas. And at times you may find these treat you a little bit better if they're actually run by a gaikokujin, a foreigner. They may be able to have some empathy for the unique living situation that you yourself have in Japan, and sometimes they have been known to set up such things as housing for a gaijin, maybe a little bit of a tour, letting you know about local matsuris, festivals, or even things like pay advance for if you just got to Japan and really are hard up on cash. So you may find your treatment is a little bit better if you go with a smaller, lesser-known company. Which you choose is completely up to you. In general, I try to stay away from the Eikaiwa business, but that is your choice. A typical lesson at an Eikaiwa is anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. Most Eikaiwas do have their own textbook, but some leave you up to your own devices. Which one is better? Really, I can't say. I would say that's really up to your own opinion. The only downside with books and textbooks that are assigned to you and the student is at times you may find yourself teaching the same lesson again and again and again and again, and the monotony can absolutely bore you to death. So I will say places that do leave you up to your own devices or do leave you to create your own lessons can be a little bit harder as far as resources, but it can also break the monotony that can make a lesson quite boring. Some places actually teach kids as well, but usually you're going to find that that is a separate situation or separate department within the Eikaiwa. For the most part, you're going to be teaching adults at Eikaiwa. And at times, they've even been sectioned off into things like business English, maybe conversational only if they're quite advanced, or times there's even language rules, which personally I find those classes insanely boring. But you may absolutely love that. I have nothing against that. But for the most part, you will have a 45-minute to an hour lesson with each student. Some let you go on for 8 hours throughout the day, and like I said, some only pay you when that student actually shows up. You definitely want to check the policies of your school before you join. Another thing you also want to check is, do they make you join national insurance? Do they have their own insurance? And also, do they pay for transportation? I highly suggest you do not join a company that does not pay for your transportation. As for your average hours, I'm going to just say that differs with each company. Some only hire you part-time, in which case I will not know how much hours you work. Some hire you full-time, and your average day is 8 hours. Okay guys, that's it for the breakdown of the jobs of ALT and Eikaiwa. I hope I've completely covered anything you would ever have to ask about these jobs. Obviously, if you have more questions, as always, feel free to write. I will do my best to answer your question. Until next time, I am Unrested. This is JFAQ. I'll see you next time.